Do you like strange horror that has like a Lynchian vibe and is just weird and off the wall? Then this horror might just be for you. It is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. Although I will say, as a trigger warning, it is about the death of a spouse and it goes through the grief and all the emotions of that. And it was a very potent and powerful portrayal of that grief. I've read several books that are in the horror genre that focus on grief, but this one was really great, I thought. Like just some of the ways and how your mind works when you lose someone who's so close to you. Also, another one I thought was like it's in my one of my top books ever is The Fisherman by John Langan. Just so amazingly good. But we're going to talk about this book today. And this follows this character, Thiago, and he has just lost his wife recently. They had moved into this condo and they had this Itza, which is basically like what an Alexa is, Alexa, set me alarm, play me this song, do this stuff. So the Itza is basically like that. You can set an alarm, you can play different music. It's attached to their bank accounts and some other stuff. At first it's fine, but then weird stuff starts to happen around like the condo. The Itza starts ordering like really weird crap. Like the first thing it orders, and at first I think it's just kind of like a spoof or something weird. It orders like a big floppy pink dildo, and they're like, oh, okay. So they call up the place that it was ordered from because it came to like the Vera was the wife's name, and it came to her address and it was charged her card, and they're like, oh, must be a glitch in the system. And then it just starts ordering stuff like 100 mouse traps, industrial strength lye, a book on how to contact the dead, ipecac, like vials of ipecac. That's the stuff that like if you take it you barf. They're like, okay, what the heck? And then just like weird stuff really starts happening around the condo. They hear like scratching in the walls. In their carport, they found like dead birds, like four dead birds, not just like one. Like they just rammed into something, hit the wall, and then died there. Stuff starts to get really strange, and the Itza keeps doing weird stuff. Like it'll seem like it's talking to someone else when no one's in the room, and or it'll play random music in the middle of the night. And then Thiago starts having these dreams in the middle of the night where he gets up and he's like sleepwalking and he's going towards these I think they got these like blackout curtains because their upstairs neighbor was an a-hole and him and his wife were always like fighting and stuff. And he'd stomped on the stairs, but he would like get in his car before he'd go to work, and he'd work third shift, so it's super late at night, and he'd have his freaking headlights just shining into their condo, and so they got blackout shades. So Diego starts like sleepwalking in the middle of the night towards the window with like the curtains, and it almost has like the light on the edges almost looks like the outline of a door. And he tries to open it, but there's nothing to open. Then he wakes up and he's like, "Oh, what? What is happening?" So all this strange stuff was happening. And then there is one day that they set an alarm on Itza, and it's like you see there Itza's doing all this stuff, and you're just kind of choosing to ignore it at this point. Well, the Itza doesn't set the alarm that they're supposed to, and they wake up and they're both late, and Vera's like, oh, F. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go. And she rushes and she goes to the train station. I guess at this point, if you don't want spoilers, at least major spoilers, I mean, from reading the synopsis that the wife dies. That's part of it, but if you don't want to know like specific details, then maybe this is a good point to stop. It's a really weird horror and it's a grief horror, and if that is appealing to you, if you like anything that's along the lines that's kind of Lynchian, just weird off the wall, like Twin Peaks-ish kind of stuff, then this is a great book. So anyways, she rushes to go catch a train and ends up someone bumps into her, knocks her over this railing, she hits her head and ends up in a coma, ends up passing away. Then you have Diego dealing with all the grief and then the memories of this and all the stuff that happens. He ends up getting a bunch of insurance money. And then there's all this other stuff too with like the politicalness of how his wife died because she was run into by an immigrant that didn't have papers, and so people were trying to politicize it and just being a bunch of a-holes. Diego's like, I need to get out of here, and he decides he's gonna go move away. He's gonna move and he's gonna go to Estes Park in Colorado. I don't know if you've ever been to Estes Park. That's where the hotel is that The Shining is based off of, and Colorado is amazing. I've been to Estes a couple times, and it's just a really cool spot. So he gets a cabin there. It's isolated, it's away, and he's driving out there. And at a point when he's driving out there too, he gets kind of lost. His GPS stops working and he finds this exit to get off on. It's called like Oasis. So he goes and he's driving, and he's not really like finding anything. And he's like, okay, well, give it maybe 2 more miles and I'll turn around. But then he sees this diner, random diner, no one's in there, lights are on. There's someone in there. So he stops off, is gonna eat maybe, and but it seems like the guy's like closing up. He goes in, he talks to the guy a bit, and the guy has like a weird vibe to him. It's like talking about why things happen to people for whatever reasons and whatnot, and then he tells him he is closing, he's closing up, but he'll make him like a milkshake or whatever. So he makes him a milkshake, and he's like the best milkshake he's ever had. And then the guy tells him how to get back to the road to get to where he's going. And he's like, okay, cool. Thank you very much. Gets back in his car, starts driving away. And then, like, out of the corner of his eye, like behind the car when he's driving away, he sees like what looks like a person, but like crawling around, like scurrying like a spider or a crab or something really weird. And he almost thought like he saw like a white apron. Like maybe it was the cook. Okay, so yes. Weird. Weird things are following Diego, it seems. And so he finally gets to the cabin. The real estate agent's there to meet him, give him the keys, walk him in and whatnot. And it's pretty isolated. There is not really much around. There is, a road that leads up to it and is in the park. So somewhere nearby, there's like a little town that he can get to, but he's not going to go there tonight. Gets there, stuff seems okay. And the next day, he goes into town and he finds this St. Bernard just like chilling. No collar, no one seems to like know whose dog it is, so he goes to the vet, and the vet's like, I don't know if I'll keep an ear out if anyone claims him. Doesn't seem to be anyone's dog, this and the other. So he takes the dog with him, ends up with this lovely St. Bernard. He names it Brimley, and Brimley loves belly rubs and whatnot. The dog seems just sweet and kind of nice. So now he has a dog, which is kind of nice because like you're in this weird, creepy cabin in the middle of nowhere. Like there's apparently a lot of windows, and like me, because I watch and read horror and paranormal stuff, I'm like, oh, isolated cabin with windows. I wouldn't want to be able to like see out. I'm like, Bigfoot's looking in on weird creature people stuff. I don't know. Who else is out there? Meth heads, they're looking at my windows. No, thank you. I don't know if the meth heads are in the mountains. Anyways, I got a little derailed there. So he's there with a dog. They go on a walk in the woods, and they're walking, and they find this weird like stone wall that gives off some pretty like kind of bad vibes. And then stuff starts to get weird because he starts to see this wall in other places, and stuff just gets real crazy, off the wall, like fever dream, other dimensional, outside of like a death in this thing between us, this wall between death and life, and like all these different questions. And the ending, I'm not going to tell you what the ending is. The ending leaves things a little open. So if you like neatly wrapped up packages with a very neat ending, this book might not be for you because the ending leaves you like, what the F? But I loved it because I love weird stories like that. Whether, something like that with that weird psychological edge that makes you just question everything. If you like weird horror, This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno was really great. And I had seen a couple booktubers talk about this, and that is what kind of made me want to get it, because I had heard Jess Owens had been talking about this book. She really liked it. And then this other booktuber who's like, they do a podcast together, Books Like Whoa. She also really seemed to enjoy it. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna pick this up because their main focus isn't really horror. They occasionally read horror. Honestly, it's great. Glad I picked it up and read it, and see, this is the booktube influence happening in real time. And if you're a fan of weird horror, the next video coming up will be about another weird horror book. So if you want to stick around, click into that, you can. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.